You hear it first, the low hum of the engines, that deep, steady pulse beneath your feet. Then the soft hiss of waves breaking against the hull, rhythmic and endless. The morning sun spills across the water like liquid gold, and somewhere in the distance, a bell rings. Breakfast is ready. You step out onto the deck, coffee in hand, feeling that familiar sense of wonder wash over you. The open sea has a way of making us feel both tiny and limitless all at once, doesn't it? I've spent years traveling the world, both as a doctor and as someone who simply loves the journey. And I can tell you, there's something almost magical about cruising, the way everything's taken care of, the way you wake up in a new port without ever having to pack and unpack, the way strangers become friends over dinner and a shared sunset. It's a world unto itself, floating between continents, carrying dreams and routines and 1,000 small stories. But beneath all that calm and beauty, there's another world running just below the surface, a world of quiet systems, hidden rules, and a few secrets the cruise lines would rather you never think about. Not scandals, nothing sinister, but the kind of inside truths that, once you know them, change how you travel forever. And here's the thing. Knowing these secrets doesn't ruin the magic. If anything, it deepens it. It makes you a smarter, more confident traveler. It helps you savor the experience with your eyes wide open. Today, we're going behind the smiles and stage lights with the help of former cruise staff who've lived these truths firsthand, to uncover what really happens on board. And by the end, I think you'll see that cruising is still one of the most wonderful ways to explore the world. You'll just be doing it with a little more wisdom in your pocket. All right, let's set sail. Now, picture this. You step aboard, and immediately, a friendly crew member greets you by name. You haven't even shown your ticket yet. You head to the bar that first evening, and before you finish ordering, the bartender says, "Let me guess, gin and tonic, light on the tonic?" You smile, impressed. How did they know? It feels like flawless service, doesn't it? Like the crew has some sixth sense, some warm intuition that makes you feel seen and valued. And in a way, they do. But there's also something else at play, something quieter, more systematic, something I call the unseen eyes. Here's what former cruise staff have revealed. The moment you book your trip, a picture begins forming. When you swipe your cruise card or wear one of those modern medallions some lines use, the system quietly starts building a profile. It tracks your purchases, your dining habits, even which areas of the ship you spend the most time in. Are you a spa person? Do you linger in the casino? Do you order the same drink 3 nights in a row? The ship knows. Now, this isn't about surveillance in some ominous sense. It's about service, efficiency, and yes, strategy. Former crew members admit they were instructed to memorize the names and drink preferences of top-spending passengers before the first night even began. That's why frequent cruisers often report being greeted by name at the bar, their favorite drink waiting before they even order. It's not magic. It's memory paired with data. As a doctor, I've seen how small acts of recognition make people feel cared for. A nurse remembering your name, a receptionist asking about your grandchildren. It matters. On a ship, that same psychology is used for service, and sometimes for sales. High-value guests may receive extra perks, surprise upgrades, complimentary wine in their cabin. Meanwhile, passengers flagged as chronic complainers or potential problems might find their requests handled more cautiously. There's no formal blacklist, but reputation spread quickly in a close-knit crew. Word of mouth travels fast. The cabin steward who notices you're unusually kind might pass that along. The waiter who sees you request the same quiet table every night might make sure it's held for you. It's human nature, amplified by data. So here's the takeaway, and it's simple. Be kind, tip fairly, and remember that your behavior quietly shapes your experience. A good reputation can earn you smoother service, surprise perks, and occasionally even a cabin upgrade. Treat the crew with respect, and they'll move mountains for you. Treat them poorly, and well, you might find yourself waiting a little longer at guest services. But let's step away from the bar for a moment and into a place where luck has its own hidden logic. A place where the air smells faintly of cigar smoke and sea breeze, where lights flash and laughter echoes. The casino. I'll be honest with you, I've never been much of a gambler, but I understand the appeal. The thrill of possibility, the excitement of chance, the hope that tonight might be your lucky night. And there's something about a casino at sea that feels different from one on land. Maybe it's the sense of escape, the feeling that normal rules don't quite apply out here on the open water. But here's a secret former cruise dealers want you to know. Those slots, those blackjack tables, they're working under tougher odds than almost any casino you'd find back home. One former dealer admitted that cruise ship slots often have worse odds than machines in a roadside gas station. And once you're in international waters, the ship has even more flexibility to adjust those odds. Now you might think, well, aren't cruise casinos unregulated, lawless even? Not exactly. Major cruise lines follow strict internal standards, many modeled after the Nevada Gaming Control Board. So they're not cheating. But here's where it gets interesting. Most modern ships use server-based slot machines. These machines can have their payout percentages remotely adjusted to be much lower than what you'd find in most land-based casinos. Add in less favorable table rules, like blackjack paying 6-5 instead of the traditional 3-2, and the house edge becomes incredibly strong. So why does this matter? Because thousands of passengers play every night thinking they're getting a fair shot. And yes, people do win. You'll hear jackpots announced. You'll see champagne celebrations. You might even watch someone win a free cruise. But the cruise line makes its real money from players who don't realize they're up against tougher odds than they'd face back home. Let me tell you a story. I met a couple in the Caribbean. Lovely people, both retired teachers. They'd saved for this cruise for years. On the second night, the husband decided to try his luck at the slots. Just for fun, he said. 2 hours later, he'd fed nearly $400 into a machine that kept promising a big payout, but never quite delivered. His wife found him there, still hopeful, still playing. They laughed about it later, but she admitted it had put a damper on the trip. Here's my advice, and it comes from both a place of medical caution and travel wisdom. Treat the casino as entertainment, not as a moneymaker. Set a strict cash limit before you sit down. Don't chase losses. And if you want to stretch your playtime, stick to lower-stakes table games where the odds are easier to understand. As for those flashy slots, maybe think twice before feeding them your vacation budget. Of course, we all try our luck at sea, sometimes with dice, sometimes with dinner. Ah, the buffet. Is there anything quite like it? The way it stretches as far as the eye can see, table after table piled high with every food you can imagine. Fresh fruit glistening under the lights, pastries dusted with powdered sugar, carved roast beef, sushi rolls, pasta stations, dessert towers. The smells alone are enough to make your head spin. It looks like it was prepared minutes before you arrived, doesn't it? Like some culinary miracle happening just for you. But former kitchen staff have a different story to tell. And it's not about cutting corners. It's about the sheer logistics of feeding thousands of people, up to 5 times a day, from a tiny floating kitchen in the middle of the ocean. Here's the truth. While a lot of the food is cooked fresh on board, many key ingredients arrive frozen. For safety and efficiency, items like seafood, steaks, chicken, and specialty meals are stored frozen. That delicious lobster tail you ordered? It was likely frozen long before it hit your plate. The scrambled eggs at breakfast? Often made from a pre-mixed liquid rather than fresh cracked eggs. The warm croissants? Baked from frozen dough. Now, before you feel disappointed, let me offer some perspective. A modern cruise ship is a massive logistical operation. Imagine trying to keep food fresh for 3,000 people while you're days away from any port. Freezing isn't about cutting corners. It's about safety, sustainability, and simply making the impossible possible. And honestly, most of the time you'd never know the difference. The chefs on board are skilled, the presentation is beautiful, and the variety is astounding. But experienced cruisers know there's often a huge quality difference between the food in the main dining room and the meals you pay extra for in specialty restaurants. The steak will be a better cut. The juice will be freshly squeezed instead of reconstituted. The attention to detail is sharper. So here's how to eat like an insider. If you want a guaranteed higher quality meal, splurge on a specialty restaurant once or twice during your trip. But for daily dining, look for the made-to-order stations at the buffet. The omelet bar, the pasta station, the stir-fry section. That's where you'll find the freshest ingredients being cooked right in front of you. Skip the steam trays that have been sitting out and go for what's made on demand. And here's a little life lesson I've learned from years of travel. Perfection at sea isn't about freshness in the way we think of it on land. It's about resilience, adaptation, creativity. Just like people. We adapt. We make the best of what we have. And often, and that's more than enough. Now when the ship docks and the gangway drops, that's where the real adventures begin. I remember standing on deck one morning in Cozumel, watching hundreds of passengers stream off the ship, excited and eager. Some had zip-line tours booked. Others were heading to ancient ruins. Some were simply planning to wander the local markets and soak in the culture. It's one of the best parts of cruising. The chance to step off into a new world, even if just for a few hours. But here's something former excursion coordinators want you to know. Not all excursions are created equal. Many of the tours offered through the ship are outsourced to third-party companies. And in some developing countries where regulations are loose, safety standards and staff training can be inconsistent. Even more importantly, if something goes wrong, like an injury or accident, the cruise line is often protected from direct responsibility because of the liability waiver you signed when you booked. One former director recalled a passenger who slipped during a jungle tour and was left to cover all the medical bills through their own insurance. The cruise line simply refunded the cost of the excursion and quietly moved on. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't take excursions. Some of my most treasured travel memories come from stepping off the ship and into something unexpected. But I am saying you should choose wisely. Here's the single most important secret. Booking an excursion through the cruise line isn't really about paying for the activity itself. It's about paying for one massive guarantee. The ship will not leave without you. If your official ship-sponsored tour gets stuck in traffic, the captain will wait. But if the cheaper private tour you booked has a flat tire, the ship will sail without you. and you'll be stuck finding your way to the next port on your own. So here's the safest way to plan your trip. For something simple like a beach day right near the port, an independent tour can be cheaper and perfectly safe. But if you're heading far from the ship for an all-day adventure, paying extra for the cruise line's tour isn't just about convenience. It's your safety net to guarantee you make it back on board. And as a doctor, I've seen too many sprained ankles, heat exhaustion cases, and medical emergencies that could have been avoided with a little more planning. The safest adventure is the one you come back from smiling, ready to share stories over dinner. Back on board, though, the real temptations begin. And sometimes they come wrapped in free champagne. Picture this. You're strolling through the art gallery after dinner, admiring the paintings, when a friendly crew member offers you a flute of champagne. Complimentary, they say with a warm smile. Soft jazz is playing. The lighting is just right. You take the glass, feeling elegant and appreciated. And before you know it, you're seated in the middle of an art auction, caught up in the energy, the laughter, the auctioneer's charisma. Suddenly, you're bidding on a painting you've never seen before, and somehow you win. $9,000. You walk back to your cabin with a certificate of authenticity and a sinking feeling in your stomach. By the time you get home, the regret has fully set in. This is what former cruise employees call the art of the upsell. And it's everywhere on board. Free champagne at the art auction, a complimentary spa consultation, an exclusive no-cost cocktail tasting. They sound great, don't they? But almost always, they come with hidden strings attached. Most of these offers are part of a carefully designed psychological playbook to get you in the door and pressure you into buying something. The ultimate goal is simple. Turn your curiosity into their commission. At the spa, that free consultation is designed to upsell you on hundreds, sometimes thousands, of dollars worth of detox wraps and anti-aging creams. At the wine tasting, you'll be given a hard push to buy the full bottle at a massive markup. Now, I'm not saying you should avoid these experiences. Some of them are genuinely fun. But walk in with a firm mental limit. Take the champagne. Listen to the presentation. Enjoy the moment. And then walk away without feeling guilty. Remember, you're not being rude for saying no, thank you. You're being a smart traveler. As a doctor, I often tell patients, the best treatment plan is an informed one. Know what you're agreeing to before you say yes. Ask what it costs. Take your time. And never let anyone pressure you into a decision you'll regret later. The same advice applies here. Now, what happens when something goes missing, and not just your sense of moderation? You might assume that if your wallet or a piece of jewelry goes missing on a cruise ship, security will swoop in like a crime scene unit and launch a full investigation. But according to former security officers, that's rarely the case. One admitted that unless it's a major incident, say a theft over $10,000, which must be reported under U.S. law, most reports of missing items are handled quietly and discreetly. This doesn't mean security isn't doing its job. There are plenty of stories of diligent teams using camera footage to recover lost or stolen items for passengers. But the cruise line's top priority is always its image. A public panic or loud accusation could ruin the vacation atmosphere for thousands of guests and lead to terrible reviews. So in many cases, if a passenger reports something missing and there's no clear suspect on camera, they're often advised to double-check their cabin and later file a claim with travel insurance. The issue usually fades into the background out of sight to avoid alarming other guests. Here's how you protect yourself. First, always use the in-room safe for anything valuable. Your passport, your cash, your electronics. Don't leave bags unattended in public spaces, and avoid flashing expensive items. And here's a pro tip most new cruisers don't know. Before you board, take a quick photo of the contents of your suitcase. If your luggage goes missing or something gets stolen, you'll have solid proof for your insurance claim. Trust is the ocean we all sail on. But even trust needs a lock. And as we sleep soundly in our cabins, below deck there's another story unfolding. Just beneath the waterline, in a part of the ship most passengers never see, there's a world running on a different rhythm entirely. A world of narrow corridors, shared bunks, and shifts that stretch long into the night. When you see crew members smiling while they work, whether they're serving your breakfast, cleaning your cabin, or performing on stage, you might imagine them relaxing in their own slice of paradise after their shift. Maybe a cozy room with a porthole view, a comfortable bed, a moment to put their feet up and watch the same sunset you're admiring from the deck above. But former cruise workers say the reality is very different. Most crew live in cramped, windowless cabins, often sharing a shoebox-sized space with another person. These quarters are hidden on the lowest decks of the ship, areas passengers never see. There's no ocean view, almost no privacy, and very little comfort. To make matters worse, the hours are brutal. Most crew work 10 to 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week, with contracts lasting anywhere from 3 to 11 months without a single day off. One bartender I spoke with recalled finishing a 12-hour shift, only to return to a sweltering cabin with a broken air conditioner and a cold meal waiting on a tiny desk. He smiled when he told me the story, but I could see the exhaustion in his eyes. "We do it for our families," he said. "Every dollar I send home builds a better future." So why am I bringing this up? Not to make you feel guilty, not to ruin the magic of your vacation, but to give you perspective. The person cleaning your room, serving your food, and keeping the ship running is doing it all with a smile, even if they're exhausted and haven't seen their family in months. I've met nurses, engineers, musicians, artists, all working below deck to make our vacations possible. And I've seen firsthand how a kind word, a sincere thank you, or a generous tip can light up someone's entire day. Here's where you can make a real difference. Tip generously in cash whenever possible. Say please and thank you sincerely. Be patient when something goes wrong, because it will eventually. Crew members remember kind passengers, and that kindness often comes back as warmer service, extra attention, and a brighter smile. And here's a bit of gentle humor I've picked up over the years. A kind word travels faster on a ship than Wi-Fi. This glimpse into crew life also comes with a critical travel tip: the rooms you should avoid. Former crew warn against booking cabins on the lower decks near corridors, stairwells, or elevators. These spots are high traffic and noisy at all hours. Imagine trying to sleep while crew members rush back and forth preparing for the next day, or while passengers stumble past after a late-night show. For a quieter stay, choose a cabin midship and on a higher deck, ideally surrounded only by other passenger rooms. It's worth the extra cost for a peaceful night's sleep. But that same kindness, or the lack of it, is tracked in ways you might not expect. That little plastic cruise card in your pocket, or the Princess Medallion if you're sailing with Princess, feels like the key to a seamless vacation, doesn't it? It opens your cabin door, buys your drinks, books your spa appointments, gets you on and off the ship. Convenience at your fingertips. But according to former cruise staff, it's also the backbone of the ship's digital surveillance. Unlike gossip or memory, this system is official, centralized, and always running. Every time you swipe or tap it, data is logged. What you purchased when you played in the casino, which excursions you booked, even the times you left or reboarded the ship. This creates a digital record of your trip that staff can access instantly. Former guest services agents admit they could quickly pull up a passenger's account to see spending totals, excursion bookings, or any unresolved charges. In some cases, unpaid bar tabs or declined credit cards triggered account restrictions until issues were fixed. Imagine trying to buy a drink and being told your card is temporarily blocked because of a payment hiccup you didn't even know about. It can be embarrassing, confusing, and frustrating. On the other hand, former staff recall high spenders and loyal cruisers, often receiving perks in their cabins. Complimentary wine, priority bookings, special invitations, without ever asking. This system doesn't rely on word of mouth. It relies entirely on data. And that data shapes how the ship sees you, whether as a valued guest, a financial risk, or someone who needs closer monitoring. Now, as a doctor, I think about data differently than most people. In medicine, data saves lives. It helps us track patterns, predict outcomes, make informed decisions. But it also requires trust. Patients trust us to use that information ethically, responsibly, privately. On a cruise ship, data is the bloodstream of modern operations. It circulates constantly, quietly keeping everything functioning. But unlike a medical chart, you don't always know what's being recorded or how it's being used. So here's the smart move. Track your own spending through the Cruise app. Most modern cruise lines have apps now that let you see every charge in real time. Check it daily. If a service is unexpectedly declined, don't just walk away frustrated. Head to guest services and ask why. A little awareness goes a long way, because your cruise card isn't just a convenience. It's a digital passport that defines your identity on the ship. Knowing that doesn't spoil the experience. It empowers you. But let's lift the mood a little, because not all secrets are unsettling. While most passengers are fighting for a lounge chair at the main pool or waiting in line at the buffet, the smartest cruisers are discovering something far more magical. The hidden corners, the quiet sanctuaries, the places that don't appear on the glossy brochures or the ship maps. Every ship has them. Quiet lounges tucked away behind art galleries, scenic decks that aren't clearly marked on the maps, secret observation spots that regular cruisers whisper about like old friends sharing a treasure. One former entertainment host told me her favorite place to watch the sunset wasn't the crowded top deck where everyone gathered. It was a nearly empty nook near the front of the ship, what sailors call the bow, where only a few curious passengers ever wandered. She'd sit there after her shows, still in stage makeup, and watch the sky turn from gold to pink to deep purple. It was my reset button, she said. My moment of peace before the next performance. On newer ships, you can even find hidden venues like speakeasy bars behind unmarked doors that only a handful of guests ever discover. Imagine stumbling upon a 1920s-themed lounge with live jazz, velvet chairs, and cocktails served in crystal glasses, all tucked away behind a bookshelf or a frosted door with no sign. Finding these spots can completely change the vibe of your trip, turning a crowded vacation into a peaceful escape. It's the difference between being swept along by the masses and carving out your own unique experience. So how do you find them? First, befriend the crew. Your room steward, a friendly bartender, or an entertainer has explored every inch of that ship. If you politely ask them for the inside scoop on their favorite quiet spot with a great view, they're often happy to share it. They appreciate when passengers show genuine curiosity and respect. Second, explore during off-peak hours. Take a walk around the ship when most people are at dinner or ashore at a port. You'll be amazed what you discover. A hidden library, a quiet observation lounge with floor-to-ceiling windows, a deck with Adirondack chairs facing the wake. And here's one of the best-kept secrets of all. The best time to enjoy the ship's most popular amenities, the main pools, the hot tubs, the fitness center, even the buffet, is on a port day. When thousands of passengers are ashore exploring, you'll have the best parts of the ship almost entirely to yourself. I remember one afternoon in St. Thomas. Almost everyone had disembarked for beach excursions. I stayed on board, deciding to take it slow that day. I had the main pool to myself. The sun was warm, the water was calm, and the only sounds were the gentle lapping of waves against the hull and the occasional seabird calling overhead. It felt like I'd rented a private yacht. The best places on any ship aren't on the map, just like in life. The most meaningful moments often happen in the margins, in the quiet pauses, in the spaces we create for ourselves when we slow down enough to notice. And as our voyage comes full circle, let me share a few reflections from the deck. There's something deeply human about the act of sailing. For thousands of years, we've looked out at the horizon and wondered what's beyond it. We've built ships and set out into the unknown, driven by curiosity, courage, and the simple belief that the journey itself is worth taking. Cruising, in many ways, is a modern expression of that ancient impulse. Yes, the ships are bigger now. Yes, there are Wi-Fi and Broadway shows and midnight buffets. But at its heart, cruising is still about the same thing. Connection. Connection to new places, new people, new parts of ourselves. Over the course of this journey together, we've learned that behind the polish and pageantry, the cruise world is full of stories, some surprising, some inspiring, and some that require a little wisdom to navigate. We've talked about passenger profiling, casino odds, frozen food, excursion risks, sales traps, theft policies, crew conditions, digital tracking, and hidden gems. But here's what ties it all together. Every voyage teaches us something, not just about cruising, but about patience, wonder, gratitude, and shared humanity. I've seen elderly couples renewing their vows at sea, surrounded by strangers who've become friends. I've watched grandparents introduce their grandchildren to the ocean for the first time, eyes wide with awe. I've sat with fellow travelers over dinner and heard stories of loss, resilience, second chances, and dreams finally fulfilled. Cruising isn't perfect. No form of travel is. But it offers something rare. A chance to step outside your routine, to let someone else handle the details, and to simply be present. To watch the sun rise over the Caribbean, to taste fresh paella in Barcelona, to stand on deck at night and see more stars than you thought existed. And here's the truth I want to leave you with. Knowledge doesn't spoil magic. It deepens it. Knowing how the ship works, understanding the systems, recognizing the humanity of the crew, none of that diminishes the experience. If anything, it makes you a more thoughtful traveler, more appreciative, more alive to the complexity and beauty of what's happening around you. I think of a patient I once treated, a woman in her 70s who'd been diagnosed with a serious illness. She told me she'd always wanted to take a cruise but kept putting it off, waiting for the right time. After her diagnosis, she realized there was no such thing as the right time. There was only now. So she booked the cruise. She went with her daughter and her 2 grandsons. And she told me later, with tears in her eyes, that it was one of the most precious weeks of her life. Not because everything was perfect. Her cabin was smaller than expected. The food wasn't always fresh. One excursion got rained out. But because she was there, present, alive, grateful. That's what travel's really about, isn't it? Not perfection, but presence. So here's my final takeaway for you. Sail smart, treat people kindly, and let curiosity be your compass. Use the secrets we've shared today to navigate the cruise world with confidence. But don't let the knowledge overshadow the wonder. Be the passenger who tips generously and learns the crew's names. Be the traveler who explores hidden corners and asks questions. Be the person who says thank you, who smiles at strangers, who appreciates the sunset even when the Wi-Fi is slow. Because at the end of the day, the best part of any cruise isn't the destinations or the amenities or even the food. It's the people, the laughter shared over dinner, the kindness of a crew member who went out of their way, the quiet moment on deck when you realized how big the world is and how lucky you are to be part of it. So, before we dock, I'd love to hear your story. If you've ever cruised, or even if you've only dreamed of it, I want to know, what moment stayed with you? Was it a sunrise you watched from the balcony? A stranger's kindness in a foreign port? A lesson you learned that changed how you see travel? Share it in the comments below, because that's how we keep the spirit of exploration alive. That's how we inspire each other. And if you found this journey helpful, if it gave you a new perspective or a bit of confidence for your next adventure, give it a like. Subscribe so we can keep exploring the world together, one voyage at a time. Because whether you're boarding your first cruise or your 20th, there's always something new to discover. Until next time, sail smart, treat the crew with kindness, and make your next cruise your absolute best. See you on board.